Praise be to Jesus Christ, and welcome to Catholic Forum. I'm your host, Deacon Jim Thorndale. I'd like to welcome all those who are watching us on public TV and those who might be joining us on podcast. Today we have a conversation and really an understanding of living a life sometimes when we go along our own way and we take the Lord out of our lives, and sometimes the journey is not so pleasant. But God always has a way to come back. God always gives us a way to find our way back to Him. Today we have a very interesting story about a young man who's taken such a journey. His name is Peter Hendrick, and I want to welcome, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And Dave Marshinda, thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Peter, you took a journey.
Yeah.
You took a journey and kind of stepped away from the Lord for a while. You had a solid Catholic education as a child, but sometimes life takes its own course, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Takes its own way.
Yeah.
Can you kind of give us an encapsulated story? What happened?
You know, I grew up in a Catholic family. I was homeschooled. And, right after high school, I really sort of fell off the map, got in trouble with the law, and got mixed up with drugs, and, I really just went my own way, like you said. And
when you were living at home, though, you're being homeschooled. Were your parents faithful Catholics?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
They were always just the best sort of people, very, very sound Catholics, and just the best parents too. So can't really explain what happened based on my upbringing. My upbringing was like you said, very, very sound.
Okay. Peter, at one time you and I were talking, you said you felt a little bit alienated from the rest of the world being homeschooled.
Yeah. Yeah, I really did. A lot of that was in the neighborhood. So many kids would ask me, how do you make friends?
Yeah.
And, at a very young age, that sort of planted that seed in my mind of, what do people think of me?
Yeah.
And that became more of an obsession with what people thought of me.
Okay.
And it changed everything about my life, just the people I hung out with at a very young age.
Yeah. In a young age, I remember being that young age where you want people to like you and you want to be accepted by all your buddies, and it probably it's a little harder road to go when you're being homeschooled.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And having so many, I have seven brothers and sisters, and there were a lot of chances to get away with not doing school.
Yeah.
And just, doing my own thing, and that, that became something that really sort of messed up my high school even. I had gotten in a habit in middle school of, trying to get away with stuff behind my parents' back and putting on a front like I was doing it, putting on a face.
Dave, were you involved with Peter at this time?
Yeah, we met probably when he was in high school, early on, and he was part of our youth group for quite a while. Okay. And then, like Pete mentioned, he started making some decisions and kind of pulled away from that involvement.
Okay. Were you kind of seeing a change in Pete at that time?
Yeah, he just became more aloof, wasn't really interested even in being at our house towards the end, when he would be there in physical presence, but not really there spiritually or mentally or emotionally. It was just kind of starting to check out a little bit.
And I think, in fairness to our audience, David, I have to mention you are one of the strongest Catholic men I know. You're a parishioner at St. Thomas the Apostle Parish, where I'm privileged to be a deacon there, and I know you have a beautiful wife and children, and it's really important. I know that you're mentoring these young men and women really into a much more profound spiritual life, and thanks be to God for that.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey and a gift to be able to have the privilege of working with young people and young adults. But there also has to be an openness from them to want to to receive.
Yes.
And when Pete kind of checked out, we'd inquire about him, try to pull him back in. Okay. But when that openness isn't there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
And you just pray that there's good people in his life, and that the Lord will find a way to draw him back in. There's an incredible quote that I think of. He says, "The Lord speaks to you in a still and quiet way, but sometimes he has to shake up your world in order for him to listen
Amen.
to you.
That's the truth. Pete, tell me, what was going on in your life when you decided that you no longer wanted to be part of the group? When you're, the senior year?
Yeah. You know, a lot of this was before my accident, so a lot of it is very cloudy.
Okay.
But I really tailed off and wanted to do my own thing. I never thought about what was good for me. I never thought about what people in my life that really mattered thought of me.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as faith, you know, I said I was Catholic. You know, up until my attempt.
Right.
I said I was Catholic, and I just was never really practicing.
Yeah.
And
let's take a little bit of a journey up to the accident. When you talk about that, wasn't in senior year you left the house, your parents' house?
yeah.
Okay.
You know, me and my parents had gotten in plenty of fights.
Okay.
It was just getting very tense, and you know, it was all me. As much as I didn't want to admit it at the time. When they asked, they never really even kicked me out. They asked me to leave.
Okay.
Because of my attitude, my decisions, and so when I left, that was probably the worst decision I ever made. Even though I loved being on my own,
Mm-hmm.
being able to do, you know,
what
whatever.
you wanted when you wanted.
Yeah. I was, you know, nobody could tell me anymore, no.
Yeah.
You know, I never had to find my way around.
So you left your parents' house.
Yeah.
Where did you go?
At that time, I moved into a house, you know, with two friends. I didn't even really know them.
Okay.
But it was, you know, an opportunity. And, you know, I've moved 6 or 7 times
Okay.
since then. So between then and the accident.
When you got involved with these other people, things started to change, I imagine.
Yeah.
What changed?
I got more into the drugs. I got more into smoking, and not so much to the point where it was a problem, you know, in my eyes.
Yeah.
You know, it's it's always been a problem, but you know, I thought I could control it.
Could handle it.
Yeah. Or ration it out, you know, and so.
As you're going through this time, I imagine things are getting a little bit darker and darker for you.
Yeah.
With probably some alcohol and some drugs and everything else. It's a hard time when you're going through that. What really started to cause you to really kind of lose track of time and everything else, or at least have an understanding of what was going on in your life?
You're saying back then?
Yeah.
You know, I really don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so like I said, so much of it is blurry.
Okay.
And you know, I was talking with my parents, you know, the past couple of days to try and remember, you know, what happened.
Okay.
But so much of it is just blurred together. You know, so
Sure.
many different girlfriends, so many.
Yeah.
Different drugs and situations I was in where I remember certain times, and then I remember the good times too.
Okay.
You know, certain vacations that my family and I took
Yeah.
that were, you know, memories that are burned in,
Sure.
which are good. You know, there was
Wonderful
good.
memories.
There was good.
There came a time, a low point, after, I know you said you had a girlfriend and she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And you were involved in drugs and alcohol and everything else. I don't want to dwell on it, but what was the accident? What happened?
Last July, on July 29, me and my girlfriend, who was not my baby's mother, we broke up while she was pregnant, and my son is now 3.
Okay.
He'll be 3 this week. And but my girlfriend at the time, who I'd been with for 3 years, since he was born, we had gotten in a fight, and there were some some pills on the dresser
Okay.
that in the past, you know, I acted weird on them, and I promised her I would never take them again. And so when she left the house, I texted her and said, you know what, I'm taking all of these. And I took them. I don't remember exactly what they were. I remember what they looked like. And I've looked them up since, and every single one has side effects of confusion and thoughts of suicide and stuff. And so I really think that was the cause of it.
Okay.
So I took all of them, and that was the last thing I remember. I've been told and shown texts that I sent people. People said I was acting strange and getting mad at, you know, everyone for no reason, and that was, you know, obviously the reason I promised her I'd never take them. But after that, I went out to the pool house, the cabana, and I attempted to hang myself by a garden hose.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
And
how long were you there?
I was hanging. I was told I was hanging for 20 minutes. I don't remember the exact report. I think it said 20 to 30 minutes, and my heart stopped for 7 minutes. And he can tell you more of the particulars.
Dave, fill us in on that.
Aside from working with youth, just kind of on the side, which is really my heart's desire, but I have to pay the bills somehow. So I'm also a firefighter for the city of Grand Rapids.
Right.
And so after Pete's accident and knowing that he was in the city, I talked with the crew that ran on Pete, and I think your girlfriend at the time did notify the authorities, because the police were dispatched and fire was dispatched for a possible suicide attempt. When they got on scene, the fire crew did find Pete hanging from the rafters and got him down as quickly as they could.
You know, I don't want to belittle this, but was the garden hose actually save his life rather than using a type of a rope?
No. His heart was stopped.
Okay.
Pete, he says that it was attempted suicide. In my mind, and everything that I've read and talked to him about, it was a successful suicide.
Okay.
He killed himself.
Okay.
The crews, both the fire department and the ambulance crews, brought him back to life through the grace of God.
Praise God.
And that's the next time I saw Pete was the next day in the hospital.
How long had it been since you've seen him?
A couple years at that point. It's been a few years. So wasn't used to the long shaggy hair and the tattoos and the earring.
Things changed a little.
Things changed a little bit, but he was still Pete. You know, he was still just this youth.
Yes.
One of my youths.
Yes.
You know,
one of the youths.
And so, you know, going there, another thing his family is really involved with is the Franciscan farm out in Lowell with the Franciscan Sisters of the Eucharist. And just to see how the community came together and we're surrounding them in prayer and being there for the family was just an awesome experience.
Pete, do you recall much about being in the hospital with people coming around and praying?
Not, you know, when I was in coma, obviously, no.
Right.
That was when I've been told that there were over 100 people at one night. I think it was the night you came or the night after, where they were turning people away because there were just too many, and that many people praying over me. And it's, you know, it's stuff like that that I am adamant about helping people with, because of how many people were there. You know, that I must have felt so low that I would have had to I decided to take my own life. You know, whether in my right mind or not, I attempted and committed suicide.
Tina, and it's one of the biggest lies too, isn't it, of drugs and alcohol, is it distorts your mind into where you no longer make decisions that are good for you, obviously.
Yeah.
The miracle here also, not only that you were brought back to life, but the prognosis from the doctor was poor, correct?
Oh yeah, it was.
What
abysmal.
was the prognosis for you?
Oh, they told my parents that if I woke up, well, on night one, they said I had, when they cut me down, I went into cardiac arrest. I had a heart attack. And so I don't know the particulars. I've been told I was put into a deep freeze.
To slow your metabolism down.
Yep, and then after that, I was put on a respirator and I slipped into a coma. So, and then I was told that, you know, they told my parents that I wouldn't make it through the night, and because I, you know, had already died technically. And then after that, you know, I was in a coma for 10 days, and they had said that I'd be a vegetable for the rest of my life, and if I even woke up, that I would need care, and to a certain point, I still do. But my attitude towards it is, you know, I'm very thankful.
Amen.
Not that.
God is gracious, isn't
Yeah. And I've told people this before when I've talked to youth groups, and that I really had to die to really like begin to live.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. David, you were a part of this.
Yeah.
You were part of this amazing growth again that he's had, because Peter told me that he didn't think he'd be able to speak again.
Right. When my wife and I went to visit him and his family at the hospital, even though Pete doesn't remember it, Amy and I grabbed his hands and started praying at the hospital bed. And both Amy and I are certain that we saw some response in him, whether it was his eyes opening or trying to emit a sound, even though he can't remember it. There seemed to be some response to prayer, to us being there. And so it was really on our hearts that is, and we didn't know, we're listening to the doctors too with this worst prognosis, but as soon as we got home, we started trying to get the word out like his family was doing and other friends were doing to really surround Pete in prayer. And in particular, we asked the members of the youth group, the old youth group, friends, family, to pray through the intercession of Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, not only for a restoration of health, but a full restoration of faith.
Yes.
And that, to me, both those things coming together is really an incredible miracle.
You've grown a lot. You're speaking, you're walking. How can that be?
I truly believe because of the grace of God. You know, there's really, they explain it, it's technically a medical miracle. Yes. You know, so, and, you know, I had nowhere else to turn but back to God. You know, I really, to this day, I've just been thankful for my life. I haven't felt sorry for myself. The way I thought before the accident, that's all gone, even though I'm physically worse off. You know, I was killing myself slowly. Yeah. Already, you know, I was going to die, and whether it was through cigarettes or drugs, you know, I was smoking a pack and a half of cigarettes a day. Yeah. You know, and I felt like an old man, like. Yes. And I'm 20 at the time, so. Yeah.
David, you challenged him in the hospital.
Yeah, he came out of his coma. We kept in touch with the family. He then went to Mary Free Bed for a number of months of rehabilitation and was eventually released to go home to have outpatient therapy. Well, when Pete came home, it was a chance for Amy and I again, and actually all the kids, to go over to his house, see his family, kind of celebrate that he was home. And it was at that time that I came over armed with my Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati holy cards and pamphlets. And as an aside, for the last 15 years or so, I've been leading young adults into the mountains of Colorado for week-long retreats with a friend of mine, Father Antoine. And it wasn't the most prudent challenge that I made because Pete was in a pretty precarious physical state at this point. But I went over there in the fall of last year, almost a year ago, and I said, Pete, this is who we pray to. I firmly believe that you're here for a reason, and I want you to join us in this mountaineering trip in July of this past year. And Pete said yes and never looked back.
Yeah.
And he made the trip.
He made the trip. It was incredibly beautiful how God works in lining things up. We were actually on the trip the last week of July, which was during the year anniversary of his suicide. So we went to Colorado with a group of 15 young adults with Versalto Ministries, and we had Mass in the mountains, adoration in the mountains, and just getting Pete to base camp was a challenge in and of itself. But the real goal was to get on top of a 14,000-foot peak.
Wow.
So we had to do things a little bit differently with Pete. All throughout the trip, I kept giving him exits. Pete, we've gone far enough. This is great. You want to stop here? Nope, I want to go further.
What drove you on?
Just the fact that I'd spent so much time preparing, so much time in rehab, it was my goal.
Yes.
The peak was the goal, and I would have felt like a failure otherwise. When we got to base camp, I had 4 days of rest. They tried for another peak 2 days after, and me and a few other people stayed back and waited for the big one. And it's a cool story. It's the night before we tried for the peak, it was just the worst weather. I've never experienced so many bugs in my life. The mosquitoes were so bad. I was so discouraged, and I don't think I've ever been that low since the accident.
It started raining.
It started raining. It was cloudy, and I was just praying. I mean, it was the day before, and David said, "All right, if it doesn't clear up, I doubt we'll be able to go tomorrow. I know it hurts, but." So I was going into this. I had 3 days of rest, so you'd think I'd be a little more, feeling a little better. But I wasn't. I was feeling very down. It was very cold. It was raining, and just very discouraging. So we go into Mass. We have Mass and adoration. So 2 hours of being outside in the rain, and the mosquitoes are still all over you. It was insane. It was
maddening.
Yes, it was. And I was praying, and about 10 minutes to go in adoration, so 2 hours of taking it. Just nature's just destroying us. About 10 minutes to go, after praying and praying, I was so discouraged. I just said, whatever, whatever, I'm not going.
Come this way.
Yeah, and right as adoration ended, the sun came out.
Praise be to God.
And I looked up, there were no clouds, and there were no bugs, and it was a miracle, right before my eyes.
The Lord was rewarding your faithfulness.
I felt so bad. I felt so bad after that because I basically just given up. In my mind, I don't know if I've even told you this, but I was so discouraged, and I was almost just blaming,
But that's a great story, because what you're really saying is God never gives up on you.
Right? Yes, and I told my mom the next day, because of that miracle that happened, the weather was too bad for it to not. Maybe it was just kind of a freak of nature sort of thing, but it was just the craziest thing I've ever seen.
David, and during this time, can you describe your efforts to help him just quickly? I mean, we don't have much time left, but
with Pete, we had to do things a little bit differently because his gait, his walking ability is still a little shaky.
Okay.
And so the bulk of the group was getting up around 5 in the morning to make the climb, and you have to be off the summit around noon because of the lightning storms up there. But with Pete, we decided to get up at 3 in the morning to make the climb, and then the group was going to follow behind.
Yes.
And so myself, Pete, and our friend Matt Grutter made the 3 a.m. Wake-up call to make the summit. And even though the goal was this 14,000-foot physical peak, my true summit occurred shortly after we started hiking in pitch darkness, going by our headlamps and just kind of, the light of faith to guide us.
Yes.
Is we decided to pray the Divine Mercy Chaplet. And here, it just, for some reason, it all came back to me that the prayer for Pete was a restoration of health and faith. And here, along this dark, cold, started raining again, it's snowing. Here it is, end of July, and we're getting pelted by hail and snow. But Pete's leading part of this Divine Mercy Chaplet.
Oh, what a wonderful
And to me,
blessing.
that was the summit. That was the faithfulness of God that's brought him back
blessing.
full circle.
Pete, we only have a couple minutes left. What's going on with you right now?
I'm trying to get my story out, to youth groups, to anybody that will listen or needs help. And I'm also in a young adult group called Caritas, where I sing in doors on Monday night. And, we'd love to have anyone. The group has grown so much in the last year. They have been such a huge part of my restoration of faith, and we go out for beer afterwards, and it's really an amazing group.
What's wonderful, Pete, is you said yes to God.
Yeah.
You've turned that corner where you see God is important now, because He's the one that's going to direct your life on the rest of this journey that you're on for your lifetime. And the understanding now is that you've made that decision, that God can control your life now. And I don't think it would have been possible, Dave, without your help. That's what Pete tells me, and I just want to thank you so much for being with this young man and journeying with him, because that's so important.
Well, I'll point the finger right back to God. He does it all. I just thank Him that He can use yourself, me, Pete, to draw people closer to Him.
Yeah. Pete, and I know this isn't an easy thing for you to come on and talk about this, but it's an important thing, because there's going to be some youth watching this who may be in a position right now that's saying, you know what, I see myself in that place right now, and I need to get away from that. And by you being open to exposing your life to others, you really are helping them to understand their journey with the Lord now, that God's calling them into a different position in their life with them also. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
It's been a pleasure having you here. You'll stay in my prayers. I want to thank you both for being able and open to come on this show and talk about this, because it's not easy. But the grace of God, here you are. I can still shake your hand and say what a blessing it is to have you back with us.
It's an honor.
And I'll keep praying for you. David, thank you for your work with him and all the youth that you do. And it's really a time now of blessing. And then we'll just thank God that He's given you the courage to be here and to continue on in your journey.
Absolutely.
Be